day, everyone. My name is Nancy Incurtia. I serve as the Director of Career Services here at Roosevelt University. Today, we'll be talking with Linda Davis.
Hi.
So we'll let her introduce herself and then we'll get started with the questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Linda Davis. I am the Director of Undergraduate Academic Advising here at Roosevelt University. I've been working here for about 7 years now, and in higher ed for over 13 years.
Awesome. Linda, we are very excited to interview you and get your take on allyship today. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So, my first question for you, Linda, is can you share a memorable moment when you stood by a colleague or sister in need? What impact did it have?
Yeah, so I have a moment that stands out for me. It was working at when I was working at another institution. We were in a meeting, and this particular colleague faced microaggression in the meeting.
Mm.
I could see that she was struggling to be heard, as oftentimes we both would be, because we were the only two women in the room. So I deliberately tried to interject and redirect the conversation so it was focused back on her. And in that moment, well, at least after that meeting, she expressed how truly grateful she was because felt like she was always being minimized, and the way that she was never able to express it to others. So for me, that moment just reinforced how small interactions can create powerful moments between not only allies but sisters and colleagues within the workplace. So for me, that created a dynamic, and it helped to change the culture within our meeting settings itself too.
I love how you mentioned how that, impact really shaped what it would look like in the workplace, especially. That leads to my second question.
Mm-hmm.
How can women support one another to create a more inclusive and empowering workplace?
ah, that's a good question, especially thinking about the dynamics of education now, the world itself right now. I think we must be intentional in the way that we do all things, whether that's mentorship. Mentorship is very important to me. Advocacy, especially in higher ed. But I believe that's uplifting one another within the same rooms and spaces that we're there, allowing us to have moments to call out biases, which I know sometimes could be hard for anyone because you don't want anyone to feel a certain way or you don't want them to treat you a certain way after the fact, but you want to create a space that is welcoming not only for all folks but for women in general,
Oh, yeah.
right? Um, I want us to be able to have those spaces regardless of our race, our identity, our background, any of those things, just realizing that we all want to feel valued. Additionally, just embracing what we always like to say in higher ed, collaboration. What does that really mean? What does that really look like? But just fostering an environment that we celebrate one another's accomplishments.
Yes,
So that's what I feel.
yes. I love that you brought up celebration. It's key. It's key in what we do, and
Mm-hmm.
it's part of how we support one another.
It
So I
is.
appreciate you saying that. Um, what does allyship mean to you in both your personal and professional life?
Um, I think I'll start off with personal. So allyship, we all know when we think about that, that means being active and showing actions, being intentional in our support. But I think that it goes beyond words. Sometimes we like to just throw words around, but there's no action behind it. So I think that it's all about fostering inclusion, respect, and equality when it comes to one another in the workplace, outside of the workplace. But I think personally for me, it means standing up for my community, letting them see that we don't have to be products of our environment, but amplifying our voices in rooms and spaces that we're not normally seen in. And then just giving a space for those of us who are unheard in certain instances. Professionally, I think it just means advocating for opportunities that, like I said, you'll hear me saying this often, but advocating for opportunities for women in general that we don't necessarily get, challenging biases which I think is a hard thing for anyone to do because, like I said, you don't want to feel like you're being retaliated against or anything like that. But I think we must challenge biases when we see them and face them head on. And I've always did that throughout my career because I'm very vocal. And then just ensuring that we're creating inclusion and it's woven in not only the environment that we're in, but in our departments, in our meetings, in our interactions with students and decision makings, which sometimes can be hard because maybe you're not one who speaks up and speaks loud. But I don't think you have to speak loudly to have your voice heard. You just have to be assertive in the way that you do it, but also professionally making sure it's woven in. I said decision making, but hiring practices, which sometimes I think we forget about, and then leadership itself. And I feel like Roosevelt has allowed me to have that opportunity because of the social justice mission. But also, I've been blessed with having the opportunity to have supervisors who have always backed me in whatever approach I seem to take when it comes to hiring any kind of staff or any kind of decision making that we take within the department itself. And like I said, just really showing consistency and understanding that it will make you uncomfortable.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, okay. So then with all of this happening, Linda, what excites you most about the upcoming Women on the Move Standing by My Sister conference?
I think what excites me, besides the fact that it's women's coming together, I'm excited about like I said, the power of like a collective group of women, not just one body of women coming with a shared goal and mission. I think this conference is not only about coming together, but it's about inspiration, but action. I think sometimes we always want to do things, but there's no action behind it. And I think this conference will allow us to have action behind the things that we say we want to do and actually do it. Um, it's standing up in like it's standing up for our sisters in spaces that we wouldn't necessarily stand up in, and then just deeply resonating with like how we can truly con upon one another, both in big and small spaces. But also, I just look forward to hearing other women's stories because being in like any kind of educational institution or work environment across the world, you have stories, and you're like, I'm not the only one who's going through this.
Mm-hmm.
So building upon those stories and thinking about how we can empower one another, how we can create a more culturally sensitive environment, but really just like taking upon those stories and empowering one another is what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking out time to talk with us today, Linda. We
Mm-hmm.
look forward to seeing you at the conference.
All right. I do want to leave you guys with like, I'm just looking forward to this great opportunity. I thank you for this opportunity to be interviewed. And my true hope is that like everyone understand that allyship is not like a momentary thing, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
lifelong commitment. So just being okay with like creating a workspace that we all can come together. And like I said, with this women's movement, this women's conference, I think it'll create a space for us to understand that we don't have to be opposed with one another. We can come together because oftentimes, especially women in the workplace, we feel like we have to compete with one another
Mm-hmm.
in order for one of our voices to be heard. But if we come together, all of our voices can be heard.
Amen to that.